Okay. Hello. Hi, Damian. Thanks for your time.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay. So, first question. Do you describe yourself today as a product designer or a community builder?
I definitely wouldn't describe myself as a product designer anymore. I would definitely always describe myself as a designer in
Mm-hmm.
general. And I definitely have a lot more community building aspects to my work. Maybe I wouldn't call myself a product designer because it's been a few years since I've worked deeply in it, embedded in a team for a long period of time, like about 2 years or so. So yeah, I would probably say I'm more of a community builder at the point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think I started finding my community until I went to my first Berlin Product Designers meetup. So I see you as a community builder as well. And I guess that brings me to the question about Berlin Product Designers meetup and Hatch conference. What
Yes.
was your goal, motivation when you started these?
So, I mean, they didn't start at the same time. Product
Mhm.
Designers Meetup started earlier, and basically it was because the pandemic was getting better and it was possible to meet again. But none of those big meetups that had allowed me to get a lot of friends and and jobs and a lot of other things in Berlin, they weren't coming back. They had been off for like 2 years, and a lot of those people were maybe not even living in Berlin anymore. So me and a friend were like, hey, why don't we volunteer our time and help bring those meetups back? So we wrote, the two or three big ones that were there, and they were all kind of like hesitant. So we started our own meetup, and that was BPD. And we did a couple of those. Then the pandemic got a little bad again, so we had to stop. And once everything stabilized, then we continue. And Hatch was, I think, after the third meetup or so, we had one of our sponsors for the meetup came to me and was like, "Hey, there's no UX conference in Berlin. Wouldn't you want to like do this but at a major scale?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let's see." And that sort of started, but they're kind of two separate projects. Even if obviously there's a lot of synergies to one another. The meetup is purely voluntary. We don't make any money. It's absolutely to help out the product designers in Berlin to connect and meet other people. Whereas Hatch is a business, and while we do have a lot of connecting happening there, there's a lot of different aspects to it.
Yeah, that's true. And so then, especially for the Berlin Product Designers meetup, how in this scenario, because it is all voluntary, it is free, how do you maintain authenticity?
I think you can tell by because now obviously we're a team of 4 or 5, and we don't really not we just really do this because we want to do this and because we know how much it helps people. But at the same time, we all have our jobs and projects and things like that, so we really try to both not let this have to be something that is so big that doesn't allow us to continue the things that we do for work. But that we really can divide our time and make the most of it and help people enjoy the most of it as well. So we take it seriously, but not too serious. And at the same time, we're always very kind of in touch with the community and trying to make it better. But at the same time, because it is a voluntary effort, and because it is something that it now it runs itself kind of very flexibly. We also kind of found the way it works and try to keep it that way, so that it doesn't demand a lot of more of our time.
I mean, I have to say, the way it is right now to me seems pretty perfect. So I feel like you've got the right formula. But then, so you've been doing, you mentioned, I think, since the pandemic-ish, you've been doing this. So after so many years of being a community builder, what are the most valuable lessons that you've
Mhm.
learned by bringing designers together?
I think, a lot of times people kind of praise us and say, how great the meetup is, how great the team is. And the reality is, I feel what we do better than other meetups is not anything but just to show up and just to be regular, because we were one of the few, if not the only meetup that has every month an event, and we really push it to really have that. And by showing up repeatedly, you actually create that sense of community and thing happening that if you have like every 2 3 months, it dissolves a little bit. So I think that's my number one lesson: to keep showing up and to try to make the events happen no matter what. And now we have the independence that if one of us, at the beginning, I was kind of like the one who had been doing it for a while, like was kind of like coaching the rest of the team and how to do things. And now I know that I can take a month off and be in like Thailand, and they can run a meetup without me, and everything goes great. So yeah, that's the other thing, right? To have a team that you can trust, and to try to make that work as much as you can, and then obviously to try to balance between creating a great event and helping people, to also caring that you're not overdoing it in terms of your own time and commitment, because it can really take a toll. It is a lot of effort, even if
Mhm.
it's, and there's things happening that can just change the course of things very fast. We have speakers getting sick. We have a strike
Yeah.
twice in a row now, stopping our meetup, and last minute things, like when you have the whole year plan and you're like, we have all the meetups, we have all the hosts, we have all the speakers, but a week before there's a strike, or a week before someone gets sick, and then you have to run around and try to fix it. So yeah, those are, I would say, are the main lessons.
Actually, that's very humble of you, and that's nice. I can imagine that now it is much easier for you to get venues or speakers, but how did you maintain this consistency when you were just starting out?
Oh, it was super tough, because imagine that it was October 2021, and a lot of companies were still closed. Most companies did not have offices open, so there was really no places to do this. And there was this big scare of like, what if a company that's like well known has a COVID case, and there's an infection, and that was like a big PR nightmare, right? Right now, if it happens, no one cares. But back then, it was a very bad thing. So it was very tough at the beginning to really convince and find the places where we could do it. And at the very beginning, I was kind of funding the whole thing myself. I mean, not we weren't paying for spaces, but I was paying for the pizzas, paying for the beers and stuff, because we had no sponsor. We had no way of getting a sponsor, because no one wanted to sponsor an on-site event. It was a danger. Even if we did like vaccine passport check and like same day test thing, and it was like very rigorous, I understand why a company would say no. And then with the when it started growing and people actually started going back into their offices, people at the meetup would come to us and be like, hey, my office, my company has an event space, or I'm actually wanting to tell my boss if we can do it, etc. So that sort of grew, and now I say we're lucky to have a handful of companies that we trust and like us, and we've worked together with, and they take 7 or 8 of the 10 meetups of the year, and then there's always like 1 or 2 new spaces that we go to.
Okay, all right. And so up until now, which has been your favorite space or talk at the
Ooh,
meetup?
that's tough. I gotta say, I'm rarely like too deep into the talk that I'm seeing, because there's so much going on at the event that I rarely can pay attention. So I can't really have an opinion on that. And there were so many really good ones that you can also see the reaction of people. Spaces. We've had also some very good spaces. Like there's so many the ones that we keep coming back, like Tax Fix, Number 26, Get Your Guide, like all these companies, they have really amazing event spaces, and they also support us with very good food and drinks. Yeah, Merantics AI Campus. Yeah, we have a few that are just like fantastic, and we love to be back. I think the rotation is nice. Like I wouldn't just say like this one we pick and we stay with this one, because it gets kind of boring. It's nice that people also get to see new companies and new spaces every time. We had, for example, obviously like our more like community networking events where we don't have speakers, like what we had at Racing. They have like a rooftop terrace, and that's always very special, where we had like barbecue. Then we have also at Bonial that they also have a super nice rooftop terrace. I can't really pick it.
No?
We're really lucky. We have
Yeah.
really good ones.
No, I remember these two. The Bernial one was the talk, which was, I think, UX designer team of one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
And Raisin is where I got the really cool Figma pin. I
Yeah, you
remember
say
that.
memorable. Yeah, we did it. We did it twice there as well. Yeah, I mean, we try that everything is interesting, and I think that each talk hits differently. Like sometimes people would be very very happy. Different people will come to us and be like, "Oh, this talk was the best talk," and for some people is one, for others is the other one. I think the important thing is that you keep the variety, and yeah, I think because of the recognition that the event got, the speakers are trying really hard to like get good and like deliver. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. And, I've of course been speaking with a lot of people right now. I've spoken with Lena, I've spoken with Matthew, and the big theme that's coming out is that times are different. Finding a job is now different. Networking is key. You do not really have the luxury of sitting in a silo. And of course, this is where Berlin Product Designers Meetup and Hatch Conference have been instrumental. I mean, I could say that also from a personal experience, and I'm barely just scratching the surface.
Mm.
So I'm going to shift gears now and ask you a bit more about Hatch Conference because, I mean, you did point out it's different from the meetups. So, first of all, I'm curious, how do you keep Hatch Conference relevant to designers at every stage of their career?
Hmm. Well, I mean, we do cover kind of from senior up, right? And the reason we do that, it kind of started with the pandemic that we had to draw a line of, because we only could have 150 people by
Hmm.
law inside a place. So we said, what's interesting for kind of sponsors and what's lacking in the space, like where there are no events for really this kind of people with this seniority. So we kind of stayed there. But I think the main reason I do it is you see my face everywhere with this, but we're really like a big group of people between like people who are working on this and collaborators. And especially like this year, for example, I have an advisory board who is like a group of four great people that are helping with curation as well. And I think to me, my this is 3 days in the year, but I'm working all year round on this, and this means like having conversations with tons of people that are in the scene, in the market, and trying to understand what's going on, both like online and offline, and trying to see which are the struggles that people are having. We have obviously a lot of surveying as well to our own participants, and we try to involve people as much as we can. And I think that's what we do a good job, is because we don't really want to push any topics or things. I think the best case was like 2 years ago, all the AI stuff happened, and I was the first one to say like, wait, let's not have everything AI, because it makes no sense right now. We have no idea what this is. We have no idea how this is going to impact. It's pointless content. And there were conferences and events going out of it, and just like putting people on stage with like 6 months of experience using ChatGPT, giving a talk or something like that. But what we try to do is really take the more like comprehensive approach, and I can really do this thanks to all of the people that I have around me. And as you mentioned, like it's so important who is in your network, so I can really go and message someone and I know that I'll get a response about, hey, what do you think
Hmm.
of this? Or I also have very good designer friends that I also consult. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. And if you have to tell, I mean, in your own words, how do you think a designer who's just attending, who's not speaking or anything, and who's, let's say, very shy and an introvert, how
Yeah.
can they get the most out of attending a conference or attending Hatch?
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of things to try to make the experience great for everyone. And I think one of the key things, and also the reason why we don't grow it past those 500 attendees, is all the smaller sessions that we have. Because I
Hmm.
completely understand that if there's like a large group of people talking, and you don't feel comfortable just approaching random circles of people. This can totally happen. But we have, for example, our roundtable sessions, which are like small, groups of like 15, 18 people getting together in a room with a topic in mind, with a moderator, and just trying to get the conversation going. If you go inside of this room, you definitely want to talk to people about this topic, or you wouldn't go in there. And the moderators are making sure that kind of the conversation keeps flowing. So I think the key is like when you go to one of these things, you end up going out with a few conversations in your pocket, and already you can already start keeping up with these people and kind of grow your network inside of the conference on top of that. But that's already at the conference day. So what do you do until then? And if you don't attend the other workshop days, which are also quite small and I would say much easier to get those relationships in, we do have a lot of meetups happening on the first day. On this year will be September 10th. The meetups are free, and even people who don't come to the conference can attend them. And they're like any design meetup, right? So that's already an opportunity of being like, we're 50, 60 people only, which means you can always have a group of 2 or 3 that you can start talking to. And on top of that, obviously, we have the whole online component. Last year, we had an event app that people could already start meeting people and sort of like chatting with each other. And we're trying to see how this year that kind of starts also from earlier, and how we can connect those people attending in as many ways as possible.
No, that's super nice. And I was at Hatch last year and I went to the podcast room and Luke Murphy was doing the one, it was about UX patterns. And I
Hmm.
really liked that concept so much that I thought, you know what, I want to do a video podcast type thing as well. And that's why we're
Nice.
here right now. So
That's
I
so
actually got
cool.
inspired at Hatch. Yes,
Nice.
exactly. And I guess that I'm curious, do you know of any specific, I don't know, success stories or any cool stories that have come out of any Hatch?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch of people obviously that met there and
Mm-hmm.
sort of connected on LinkedIn, and after that they have, they started working together. Like whenever there was a position open, they invited someone to just join them. There have been cases of people who actually, combined forces to like start businesses and or had an idea that started boiling there, and then they felt that after attending the event, they really had the network to sort of try that out. I think in the case of people like, yeah, like Lena, for example, obviously she was working at Miro and obviously she knows hundreds and thousands of people. But I like to think that after she was at Hatch, and that's also probably what she's returning this year as a participant, it's because she also felt like, oh, that all those connections and the things to have are different than what you do online from your LinkedIn itself. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it just works on its own. Like you can't expect that you attend the event and suddenly like all your problems are solved. It's more like if you go with a specific target of what the kind of people that you want to meet there, they're very likely to be there. It's just like how you find them and how do you approach them. But what we do is just put the right people in the right room and then give you some ideas on how to get the thing started. But it's obviously up to you.
Yeah, that's true. It does come down to the individual. So, if if you could wave a magic wand and change just one thing about how, I don't know, maybe designers network, or you know what, let's use the word support, how they support
Hmm.
each other.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Um, I don't know what the format would be, but I think there's always, you know, a lot of egos come with the role of designer, and especially a lot of like taboos. And I feel a lot of people feel that they have to prove themselves in front of each other, and there are a lot of conversations that are not being had in terms of vulnerable topics, things from can be from hard facts from like compensation and
Hmm.
things that work, but specifically also about like how they are dealing with the pressure that is to have certain jobs and to work in certain companies. I think there's a whole conversation about like mental health and burnout that we've obviously had some of that last year at Hatch because I considered that was important, and it was a great talk by Katarina. But she, yeah, to this type of things that actually don't have to do with our production and our our design systems and this kind of things, but actually have to do a lot more about how we are feeling as individuals, the kind of challenges that we're having. So I like to think that part of those formats that we have do break down some of those barriers. But we can only do this for like 1 to 3 days a year, and then how that goes further, it is kind of someone else's job, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess some things I mean, you can try to make it happen, you can create the perfect environment, but
Mhm.
it has to grow organically.
Yeah,
So, and that's something only time can tell, really.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Damien, this has been super, super amazing and insightful. And so before I end it, I have one last question for you. What advice do you have to a designer, or you know what, let's open this up, let's broaden this up to anyone who wants to build a community?
I think you just have to start small. A lot of people think that a community has to have 3,000 members like ours, and it's not. Like you can't really tailor to that, and if it does get to that, it's better if it gets there organically. I believe the future of communities is in the niches and not in the massive communities. So really try to find just a group of people that are sharing a specific problem or a specific need, and just focus on how does that community potentially helps those people only. And then if it's something that needs to grow, it will grow, but just don't focus on the numbers and really focus on the kind of that specific niche.
Hey, wow. No, that's super insightful. Thank you very, very much. And well, I wish you a very nice day.
Thank you. You too.